What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. Make sure you go to coinmastery.com/invest to get our PDF and be part of the newsletter, get lots of free information. So go over there, get started. Today, we are going to talk all about Bitcoin Gold, talk about what's going on, and we're going to talk about what you can do about it, some potential options, what my personal plan is going to be, and then we're going to, at the end, talk about a few different things that I spent a lot of the weekend thinking about and executing on that I think you guys will find really valuable in your ongoing pursuit of making better decisions and crushing this financial revolution. That's what this is all about. So let's dive in. All right, it's kind of big, isn't it? Let me see if I can shrink this. Over the weekend, we saw some great price action. So let me pull off this 5 minute. That's not going to help anyone here. So today is October 23rd, I believe. And so we're right here. When we look back over the weekend, we had a really nice spike. And then we saw a bit of a comeback. And then today we're seeing a bit more of a drop. Right? The obvious reason why is to fill in this big jump gap that happened right here, at least from a charting standpoint. The more macro or fundamental standpoint is because of the Bitcoin Gold uncertainty. Specifically, if you don't know, like really basically what's happening is that Bitcoin is splitting, and if you own Bitcoin before it splits, you get credit for an equal number of new coins called Bitcoin Gold. So people are buying more, so that when it splits, they have more of both. That's the idea. And then together, theoretically, it'll be worth more than if you just had held on to the Bitcoin itself or whatever. The precedent for this is Bitcoin Cash. And this is a different because we've already done it once. And it's also, there's a much lower quality score, I guess is the word. But we'll talk about that in a second. But that's what's going on. Just for anybody in case you're not crystal clear on what's happening. So we saw obviously this first dip down to 5,100. We saw a huge run up, and especially after 6,000, it just went straight up. And now we're seeing a bit of a comeback, a bit of a retracement in preparation for these different events that may happen. So that's what's going on. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, I think that there's a few things that this means. And what I want to do before we get into the actual financials of it is I want to just talk about what your options even are. So the first thing is that as of now, it's about 10 a.m. Pacific time. In 11 hours, which I guess would be, 11 hours from now, 10 p.m. Pacific. So 9 p.m. Pacific tonight, October 23rd, whatever that is in your time zone. That's when the snapshot is going to be taken, and that's when the split is going to be made. Now, Coinbase said that the snapshot may have already been taken, but then Bittrex said that the snapshot was going to be taken right at the time of the fork. So that's the first piece of ambiguity, and maybe I'm missing something, but that seems like that's still not crystal clear on. When I say snapshot, it means the point in time that determines how many Bitcoin you own, which will determine how much Bitcoin Gold you own. But no matter what, at 9 o'clock tonight, if my math is accurate, Pacific time, this is going to go live. And you can go to their website over here at btcgpu.org. And I'll link this up if you want to go to the official site, which, officials in huge air quotes right now. But that's really when the market pressure should apex, meaning this chart uncertainty, theoretically, if Bitcoin Gold is the driving force, should really come to a head at 9 o'clock or 8:55 tonight. That's when it should be max uncertainty. Whether or not that means biggest price drop, whether that means biggest swings, that's to be seen. But that's what you can expect in terms of timeline. Now, on the flip side, there's, as soon as that snapshot happens, you can expect to see two things happening. One a mass race to sell Bitcoin Gold, because the overall consensus is that nobody's going to keep Bitcoin Gold. I don't think, anybody, or I should say, the people who are keeping Bitcoin Gold, it's not an active decision. It's more of a, hey, whatever, I don't care. This isn't worth my time. But there will be a large majority of people that want to go sell it as fast as they can, because if you remember with Bitcoin Cash, it spiked immediately. And even though it spiked again, the first run was really where you could make a disproportionate amount of money. So you are going to see that. You're going to see a lot of volatility based on what's happening right now. This is a good time when you can actually zoom into the 5 minutes to see what's going on. By 9 o'clock tonight, you should be more. If you want to get a really good idea of what the price action is going to be, the volume, which is these black and white bars. Now I've changed the colors on my trading view, but these bars at the bottom dictate the volume. So you can see whenever you see high volume, you tend to see consolidation at levels. So watch the volume as this price changes. That's going to be a really good indicator, right? This last 5 minutes, we just had a big volume spike, and that was a price decrease. And so you may find that the high volume spikes are driving sell volume and not necessarily buy volume, meaning the price is probably going to go lower by 9 o'clock tonight. But, Bitcoin, crypto, who the hell knows, right? So that's what that is. Let's talk about Bittrex, because that's where a majority of you at least have an account, a trade. Bittrex, Binance, Poloniex are really the three big exchanges that most people trade on. I would say Bittrex is probably the biggest for now, which, Bitfinex and BitMEX both do the biggest volume, which is actually something I want to bring up, but we'll do that later. And it's important to know, this is their statement, which I'll post this. And if you don't follow these guys on Twitter, I would encourage you to do so, because this is where you can get the most up-to-date information. But they talk about what they're going to do. They will credit you if you have Bitcoin on Bittrex. So if your Bitcoin is on the exchange, they will credit you. However, they will not they're not going to allow trading to happen, meaning that they may credit you Bitcoin Gold, but you're going to have to pull it off and go trade it somewhere else, wherever that may be. Yobit, one of them. There's one called like BitStar, but all of these are pretty sketchy at this point. So I don't even know who's going to be trading it to begin with. Legitimate exchanges. It also gives you a pretty good rundown. Now, the biggest one is that Bitcoin Gold does not currently have implemented replay protection. Originally, I think they did have replay protection, or at least people thought they were going to have it, but they have not put it in, which means that there is the possibility that transactions can get crossed between chains, right? Your original Bitcoin and your Bitcoin Gold transactions can get messed up, which further makes it complicated if you end up trying to trade your Bitcoin, or spend one and not spend the other, which makes the whole thing just even more complicated. If you don't know what that means, if you're not interested in what that means, it doesn't matter. It's just more evidence that this is probably not going to be a very long-lasting coin for you. That's why these guys are not going to support the trading, mostly because of that protection. That's also a big thing in the SegWit 2x debate, which is the next big fork, is that the replay protection is not in place yet. There's also a big pre-mine. Bitcoin Gold, it's unclear how much of it is, but pre-mine basically means that the developers or somebody's already mined a bunch of the coins for themselves, or for the integrity of the blockchain, which, I mean, come on, right? So that's what Bittrex is doing. So if your Bitcoin is on Bittrex, you are going to get credited for Bitcoin Gold, but you're going to have to withdraw it off of Bittrex and go trade it somewhere else. You can't just flip it on Bittrex right there. Now with Coinbase, similarly, they are not going to credit you for this. Let's see here. Because they really just don't think it's good at all. So Coinbase they did the same thing for Bitcash or Bitcoin Cash. Now they're reversing themselves with Bitcoin Cash and saying, hey, we're going to release it, but not until I think January or something. You'll have the credit available, but you're going to have to take it off and access it somewhere else. So it is what it is. It's just like these exchanges. So the reason I'm telling you this is if you have not taken any action yet, you probably still have a few hours too. I think on Bittrex, they may have closed the wallets, but that's not as big of a deal because you can exchange it. You can withdraw it later on. But with Coinbase, you can move accordingly. Right now, let's talk about what this all means for making money, because it's really, at the end of the day, that's all people really care about. And if you go on yobit.net, which I wouldn't say is the most legit exchange, but it is a futures market. You can go check and see what Bitcoin Gold is doing. I'll link this up. And here's what's interesting. You can go and see the latest price. I'm looking at 24 hours. I'm not sure exactly what the block of time is right here. I can't see this. But you can look at the trade history, and it's showing us that hovering right around 0.072 Bitcoin is the trading price, at least the Bitcoin-based trading price. Now, if you go and look at the Bitcoin price, let's do something fun here. Ready? So 5831, that's the current price. And let's see, times 1.072, which would be like how much of the if you added these two together, what would you get? And you get 6250, meaning, so that got up to 6185. Meaning if the snapshot happened right now and you were able to immediately sell your Bitcoin Gold for your Bitcoin, your total supply would be worth 6250 at this exact moment, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 10:03 a.m. or whatever. Now you can imagine that these are probably going to change. They're going to change very quickly. So the price of Bitcoin may go down. The price of Bitcoin Gold may go up, may go down. The price of Bitcoin may go up. You don't know. But if you add the two together and then you look at what the real opportunity cost is, that's when you decide, is this even worth it? Meaning this may be the amount, but you're going to have to get your Bitcoin Gold off of whatever exchange or whatever wallet you're using, assuming they credit you. You're going to have to load it onto exchange, and the prices are going to have to hold true for this to be worth it. So the way I see it, there's two options for you. The first option is you don't do anything. You just let this thing, you let Bitcoin do its thing. The price may drop, it may not, but you step back and you say, look, I'm not even going to get involved, and so it goes, and you don't try to capitalize on this individual opportunity. In fact, a sub piece of that is if it goes down low enough, maybe you buy some on Bitcoins, like, based on your own strategy and dip levels. But the bottom line is the first option is you don't even think about Bitcoin Gold. You don't care about it, whatever. You're not trying to do anything with it. And if you miss out on a couple $100, so be it. The other option is that you get as much Bitcoin as you can, or you already have all your Bitcoin. You put it on your wallets, on Bittrex or on your offline wallets that will credit you for your Bitcoin Gold. And I have not gone through every single wallet, so I can't tell you. You just go look on their websites. They'll tell you which ones will credit you. You get as many Bitcoin as you can. You gather your Bitcoin Gold, and as soon as you can redeem them, you go and you sell it on an exchange that will allow you to trade it, whichever that may be. And that'll probably be in a day or two, assuming you don't want to put your money on these sketchy exchanges, which I would not recommend doing. That's how you get the futures markets. So your first option, don't do anything. Just play Bitcoin as it lays. Second option is buy up Bitcoin however you want, and then bet that the price of Bitcoin Gold, after all of the work, is going to exceed if you had just held on to Bitcoin. My personal opinion is, as you can imagine, I'm way more on option number one. There's a lot less risk, it's a lot less headache, and if anything, you're probably going to get a pretty good dip. And when you look back at Bitcoin Cash, when you look at the price drop versus how much money you can make on Bitcoin Cash, unless you timed it perfectly, you're actually a lot better buying the dip after Bitcoin Gold happened, or I'm sorry, Bitcoin Cash happened, and then riding that back up, than buying the Bitcoin price as it went up and getting the Bitcoin Cash and trying to scalp it. Do you see what I mean? It's like after this Bitcoin Gold thing goes live, probably going to be a sell-off for Bitcoin. And so that price drop may exceed the amount that you make on the Bitcoin Gold. And if that's really what's going to happen, which is what it seems like it will happen, it's just a much better risk-reward ratio to go in with. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So just to summarize for you, I'm only looking at Bitcoin. I couldn't care less about Bitcoin Gold. I have no intention of like trying to scalp that as fast as I can. What I am really interested in is the price action on Bitcoin, and as if it drops down to any of these levels that I'm looking at, right? Like the 4,900 level. It's really what I like. 54 obviously has got some levels of, some interesting things happening, but the sub 5,000s is what I would love to see for a buy up. And I bet I'll make more money. Anyone would make more money on that than they would buying Bitcoin now and then trying to add on the Bitcoin Gold revenue. So that's the game plan. Cool. All right. So I'll link all this stuff up. You can go check it out. Yeah. Now I want to transition to a few things just because it's Monday, and on the weekends I tend to do a little bit with crypto, but more just thinking about things outside of crypto. And I think that one thing that I always that I really think about a lot on weekends is like how could I be completely wrong about anything in terms of investment? And I don't mean that in terms of my strategies being wrong or whatever it may be, or I'm learning the wrong stuff. It's what am I not seeing that somebody else would see that could completely jeopardize my long-term vision? And I think that that's something that I've learned from a lot of investors over the years, is that they always try to find holes in their thesis, in their ideas. A guy like Mark Andreessen, the guy, one of the co-founders of Netscape, just this brilliant venture capitalist and programmer, inventor, entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. And he really, I listened to a talk he gave a long time ago, and that sparked this whole idea. So I always think to myself, what could be the reasons that these ideas are wrong? On the micro level, it's like, what if everybody thinks that Bitcoin price is going to go up before Bitcoin Gold, and then it's going to drop after Bitcoin Gold, and then altcoins are going to spike post Bitcoin Gold because the money flows back in? Like, what other arguments are there that could prove that completely wrong, right? And then you go to the macro and you look at things like, what are some really good arguments that Bitcoin really is like way overpriced? And let me be clear here. I'm not saying this is what I think or what my personal opinion is. It's just that I have to find bulletproof opinions because that's what you do. That's what you have to do as an investor. You can't, because you don't want to lose money. That's the number one thing. And then you start thinking about, how do I make money? And then the third thing is, how do I make to get the best yield? But in that order. And if you flip those orders, that's when you get screwed. So I always try to think about that idea, like what am I missing? What am I not thinking about? What is somebody else seeing that I'm not seeing? And specifically, I've been really interested in this idea of the bubble and of Bitcoin specifically, and not necessarily with the whole ecosystem, but specifically with Bitcoin and Bitcoin's price and how Bitcoins or bubbles are formed. And if you haven't, go watch Banking on Bitcoin. Great documentary on Netflix. I'd seen part of this, but I sat down and watched the whole thing, start to finish. And I think it was great. It was definitely worth watching. Really good insight into a lot of the top thought leaders within the space and people that have been in the space for a long time. It's like a lot of the original, Bitcoin evangelists, and even blockchain evangelists, and the original cryptocurrency cyberpunks, whatever you want. And then I started reading it, started watching a lot of lectures on YouTube all about decision making and self-fulfilling prophecies, and a little bit about reflexivity and just the bubbles and how these all start to form. And it really gets you thinking. And I'm going to link all this stuff up, and I don't have a clear conclusion on this yet, and nobody will. That's the reason why the bubbles, it's impossible to pick them. But the one thing that I did come away with after watching, not Bang with Bitcoin sort of, but after reading a lot of this, after listening to a lot of podcasts, after watching a lot of lectures and reading some books, going through all this, is that you have to manage your risk along the way. And the worst thing that can happen is that when you have too much being in that volatile environment, meaning nobody can predict whether or not, obviously this is an unprecedented speculative market, right? The vertical line is crazy right now, and it's going to continue to be crazy for a while. You can't control that. But what you can control is the size of your positions that will be affected by that one way or another. And I think that's one thing that I'm starting to come to grips with, is that it's really important to start to diversify, not only within crypto, but have hedges outside of crypto. And I talked a little bit about this last Friday in the video. But every single one of these investors, institutional investors, regular, private office investors, people that have 10 million up to 10 billion or 100 billion, whatever. The one thing that they all said as it relates to bubbles is that they had too much on the line. And your judgment gets clouded when you have so much on the line, and then it's never worth the downslope if and when a downslope comes, because it always comes, at some point. And we've been very fortunate in that, we've seen, at least in the last 6 months, we've seen some pullbacks, but they come back in a matter of days, sometimes weeks, but days or very short amount of time, and it's back to the races. Whereas you go back to 2013. This was years that it took. And when you look at the macro, yeah, maybe it goes to 200,000, but if it goes up that fast, it's going to come down too. And this is it's an uncomfortable idea. It's an unpopular idea. And it's not one I necessarily think we need to prepare for right now, other than if you guys have all of your money in this kind of business, in a bubble, you're going to lose your mind. And it may seem like it's always going to keep going up. But it can't, because that's the nature of economics. It has nothing to do with earnings reports, or doesn't make money or whatever. Is that there's always going to be people that emotionally will lose faith in it. They will lose the vision because it's just become too unstable. We're not robots. We all have emotions. And just as much as we can believe in something, there's an equal amount of self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh shit, this is done now. This doesn't work anymore. And it collapses. I think we've got a long way to go till that happens. But if you guys have been following me for the last couple months, you remember, like, I've been talking about this, and as we get closer to, let's say, 10,000, this is the kind of conversation, these are the kind of ideas that you have to have with yourself. Meaning, are you all in on crypto? If you are, I mean, you got to give up a little bit of the dream of making 10,000%. You got to scale that back a little bit so that you're not completely exposed. And that's the big takeaway that I've gotten so far, because the other thing is that you just can't predict this stuff. There's no way to know. And if it's going up this fast, it's going to come down equally fast, and there's no way to predict it. You can hedge it and all that, but there's not really a lot of instruments for that. But I'll link this up. I just think that this is a really important thing to think about. I think that one thing that brought this up is that over the last week, Bitcoin has surged, and a lot of people have realized, wow, they have all their money in altcoins. And they're like, well, at least after the snapshot, or after the fork, my altcoins are going to skyrocket, and then I'll figure it out then. And I think what this is telling me is that may be true, and it may not be true, but if you're all in on altcoins, there's nothing, it's very difficult to do anything about that, short of going out and just making more money somewhere else that you can fill in the rest of your portfolio to balance out that risk. And I don't know, I keep coming back to this idea of greed and speculation, and how easy it is to blind ourselves of, yes, you want to ride that bubble, but you don't want to get into a position where it's a 90% drop, and then you got 3 years where altcoins are not back. Something to keep in mind, something to think about, especially as we get into these forks and all this uncertainty stuff. Diversification, and I'll continue to talk about diversification and how to do that, but I do think that that's important. Last thing, this book, which not really related to anything with crypto. This is one, I would say this book is one of, if not the most influential book in my entire life. I've definitely given this book to more people than any other book, and I would encourage anybody to read it. And the reason why is, I'm going to pull up this is like a chart. This is what the book is all about. It's called The Slight Edge. It's a guy named Jeff Olson. And the idea is that effort and decisions compound just as much as money and interest rates do. If you make a lot of really small but good decisions over time, they compound and they create massive change. If you make a lot of small but bad decisions, those also compound over time. And often what gets confused, I see this all the time in the entrepreneur world, but also in just anytime anybody wants something to happen in their life, whether it be ambition, whether it be health, whether it be relationships, whether it be finance, whether it be making a lot of money, is that they think that it's all about, how do I make these huge power moves that will change the trajectory of my life? And at least for me, one thing I've found is that it's all about making small but good decisions every day, trying to get 1% better every day. Get 1% smarter about your financial portfolio. Learn one new thing each day, and minimize these bad decisions as often as you can. And I have also found that the best way to do this is to outsource yourself. I always tell my friends, my entire goal in life, as it relates to business and making money, is to outsource myself in every way I possibly can, because I'm a human, and inherently I'm not going to be as good at long-term making money as, say, an algorithm would be, or even a money manager or an index fund. Statistically, that's probably going to do better than I will. But what I can do is I can generate money a lot better. Long-term, I just want to outsource it. And so what I do every day is I see how many things, right? Think about one thing I can do or one decision I can make that helps outsource my bad decisions. And I try to make one decision a day that is easy to do, that leads to better decisions. The reason I bring this up is because, I mean, you can apply this to anything where you just do something for 5 minutes every day or whatever. In finance, in crypto, there are an infinite number of decisions that you can make each day. There's an infinite number of things that you can do each day. And what I would encourage everybody to think about, first of all, I'll encourage you to get this book. I'll link to it below. It is an unbelievable book. And how can you make small decisions that you know are good for you, that you know will move you forward? They're not going to be huge. It's not going to be like, all right, I'm taking out a $400,000 loan and I'm going to go drop the hammer on some options. No, I'm not talking about power moves. I'm talking about what is one small thing you can do. If you're just getting started, it's that $50 purchase on Coinbase. It's that type of thing. If you have, if you already have your altcoins, it's starting to write down in your notebook each day. Okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes. I'm just going to write down what happens if it goes up, what happens if it stays the same, what happens if it goes down. How can you build small decisions, disciplines that you have a very, very high probability will make your life and your returns better? Then how can you mitigate the things that may cause error in judgment? Here's a good example for the errors in judgment. If you've gone through a cycle, maybe a cycle like this, and you sold your altcoins at the bottom, and it happened, and you're like, I'm never doing this again. And then you go back, and 2 months later, the same thing happens again. And you're like, oh, I got it. I can't do this. Okay, I'm not going to do this again. I learned my lesson. I'm not going to do it. You got to take that a step further, where what's a system? What is this? What is something you can do to make sure that does not happen again? So in my case, I put all my coins in offline wallets onto airdropped laptops, and I lock them up, and they're all over in different safe deposit boxes. Like, I can't physically do anything. There's nothing I could do even if I wanted to. And that makes it so that every day I do a little bit to move the coins into places that will guarantee that I don't do that. So that over time, like you can see on this chart, which if you're listening on the audio, it's two exponential curves. One's going up, one's going down. The more you just do those small decisions over the course of 3 months, now I never sell at the bottom because I physically can't. Like, there's nothing I could do about it even if I wanted to, because I don't have access to it. And that will save, that's a good thing over the long term. That's a good move to have. So the bottom line, if instead of trying to think about how do you always do the big, massive right thing, it's often much more effective to think about what is one thing I could do that's very small, but I could do it every single day that I know would lead to something really great in the future. And I'm relating this to crypto. You can do this for anything in your life, and it works. It is truly as close to magic as I've seen. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you because I keep coming back to that book over and over, and I never really talked about it on this show. So with that, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to start to put get the popcorn out, watch this Bitcoin gold action happen. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.